Has someone ever challenged you to something that they didn't know who are an expert at? If so, how did it turn out for you/them? A neighbor on my block in Brooklyn challenged me to a pizza bake-off. I recently catered pizza for my daughter's school and word got around the neighborhood my pizza was pretty darn good. My first thought was, this guy is a Brooklyn native, my pizza will be shite compared to his, but there was something about him bragging that I couldn't resist the challenge. He talked up how pizza was in his blood, how his dad ran the pizza place around the corner years ago. I remained silent and let my skills answer for themselves. I got a buddy to let us use one of Baker's Pride ovens at his restaurant. We even had total strangers try our pizzas. Every last person chose my pizza over his. I never mentioned to him that I've worked in pizza places almost every day for the last 30 years. I never mentioned that when I'm not working at a pizza place I'm making pizzas at home at least once every 2 days. I never mentioned that at 9 years old I knew that I wanted to be a pizza man. Here I'm 45 and getting ready to start my own pizza business. You go you crazy pizza man. My uncle challenged Jack Nicklaus to a golf game in college without a clue. The humiliation burns him to this day. All I'm hearing is my uncle played around with Jack Nicklaus. I'm incredibly jealous. Not me but my brother and best friend. We were in Baltimore for a baseball weekend in 2009 and hanging out at a bar across from Camden Yards. They had a Silver Strike bowling video game. At our local bar back in Boston we had one as well. I'm decent at the game, but my brother and buddy were fucking amazing at this game. Bowling 300 games and whatnot. So two dudes are playing this game and drinking. We ask them if we can play when they're done. They ask if we want to play them. We said sure. My brother and buddy destroy these guys. Like it wasn't even close. These dudes said it was a fluke and they wanted a rematch, but this time for a round of beers. Again, Annihilation City, but they kept wanting to play to eventually win a game. No lie, after 13 rounds of beers they finally gave up. They were great guys. We saw them the next day at the same bar and they walked up to us with beers in hand already and said rematch. To this day we still hang out with them whenever we go to Baltimore, and to this day, they have never won. Edit for details. The guys were buying 2 beers each time they lost a game to the 2 guys they lost to. For my brother and friend. The beers were Natty Bob, which is Baltimore's cheap gross awesome beer. I can't remember the price, but they were under $2 a piece back then. They would buy the beers and they'd just start piling up on the table next to the machine. So we were all just drinking them. I'd say around 25 to 30 beers between the 5 of us in 4 or 5 hours. Tab was probably $60-ish for beers, but we were there all night getting wings and a million apps, so we all just paid the tab anyways. Sounds like they were fun people who liked having someone to bullshit with. For reference, this is clay pigeon shooting, kinda known as trap in the south. Well, I'm from a rural area, and not exactly super southern, so when I'd go to other trap fields to practice different conditions there's always be a smartass or two try and place a bet with me. This is definitely an old money sport with some of the guns going upwards of $5,000. I had an old BT-100 that we got in a trade for each shot and some cash on the side. While not cheap, it was still much lower than other people's guns and people would take that as me being a newbie. They'd learn pretty quick though, since the team I was on went to the nationals almost every year from 11 to 18. It was always funny, because some would be good sports, but others would throw an absolute fit. I saw a guy damage a 10,000 Pirazzi because someone else beat him before. Even funnier part is there was a guy from the county next to us who could blow us out of the water and he always shot with an 870 pump from Walmart. Edit. For clarification, BT-100, Browning Trap Model 100, famous for its dropout trigger, could be replaced in seconds. Nationals. It was at Vandalia, Ohio until 2006, then moved to Sparta, Illinois, and might be moving again. If you've seen a trap range, imagine about a mile and a half plus of them. Pirazzi, fancy Italian shotgun that is known for being good, but some models are overpriced. 870 pump, Remington model 870 pump shotgun. Imagine your dad's pump shotgun and this is it. My shooting instructor uses to say, no matter the gun, it's the person behind it who hits. The guns all shoot straight. My office announced a laser tag team building event 2 weeks after I played in the laser tag Ultrazone National Championships, which were an actual thing in 1997. Edit. Sigh. No, this is not a him reference, which I have to specify every fucking time I talk about it. I was never of any competitive laser tag level. However, my family used to stay at this hotel/resort thing every year around Christmas, and part of the package was wristbands for unlimited laser tag. My sister and I would go down when they opened in the morning and play until they closed at night. We learned the ins and outs of that room so well and got to competing on various things like who could keep their accuracy highest. My favorite was a challenge to only knife people. You could only shoot someone if you place your gun against their vest. We weren't amazing, but it was always fun to get a big group of kids come in and talk trash, so we would offer to 2vx them and just absolutely destroy them. When working as a teacher, I beat a lot of students in Pokemon battles, cause they didn't think of me being like 15 years ahead of them in fighting experience. Notes. This is how I trounce my younger siblings at Smash Brothers. Every game really. Fucking teenagers think they're hot shit. No way their old ass big bro is gonna beat them this time. I have been playing since you were a baby. Oh, you got a new game. Cool. I played something a lot like it on a PlayStation with potato graphics. Get wrecked. Not a physical challenge, but I sell building materials for a living. Think Home Depot, but for guys that build skyscrapers and stadiums. There has been many occasions where an old man with zero construction knowledge tries to lecture me on what I do for a living. Chess. I'm a chess master. I think when people hear that they're like, oh, he's really good at chess, but what it means is that I've played in international tournaments and beaten other masters, and some governing body has given me a title. Anyway, I get challenged a lot by friends who think they are pretty good. What they don't realize is that your average pretty good player is getting destroyed by your average tournament player, and your average tournament player is getting destroyed by a master. I had a friend whose scores didn't align with his skill, and he beat a master once and then never played competitively again. Said he'll never ever do better than that. He still plays with the old men at the mall almost every day. My landlord tried blaming me for damage to the kitchen cabinets, but didn't know that I'm in construction, and I'm very familiar with home building codes. They placed the cabinets too close to the stove and the glue that held the laminate had melted. My old landlord tried to screw me over on our security deposit when we moved out after 10 years. Put a ton of questionable stuff on the bill, missed the window for providing receipts by a few days, and only had quotes for work that he never eventually got done. I'm not a lawyer, but my work life is all focused on telecom regulation and contracts. I also have a degree in history with a focus on legal history in some areas, so it was easy enough to get a basic handle on the state and local laws around this stuff, as well as pull up case law. We had a couple back and forth interactions over email when I finally responded with each place where he fucked up, giving him detailed references to the laws in question and how they'd been interpreted by local courts. Also pointed out that some of the things he was doing were pretty clearly being done in bad faith, and that if I was able to demonstrate that in small claims court where he can't bring a lawyer, he'd potentially be liable for triple damages. He emailed me back the next day saying he just wanted to move on and not pursue the claims anymore. Stupid thing is, this was all over a couple $1,000s. He ended up selling the place for about $1.3 million, which was a nice $900K increase from when he bought the place in the 90s. Arsehole. Someone at a bar bet me there were only 30 days in a particular month. $20 if I could prove them wrong right then. Pre-cell phone days. I was born on the 31st of that month. Showed them my driver's license. Edit. Word for clarity. Expert at knowing things. In junior high I got challenged at floor hockey by this douche who was good at literally every sport. He was a massive dick and would make fun of me. I sucked at most sports and was not particularly fast, but I played ice hockey growing up and would spend hours on our local basketball court practicing my stick handling. I dusted his ass. I scored a natural hat trick on him. He shut up after that and stopped making fun of me. I was one of those people who was naturally good at sports, but never an ass, and was usually quiet. People picked me last in most games, but then realized they fucked up. I never really played sport, except when my uncle forced me to play baseball, but I guess me and my siblings are just overly competitive. Think one of those times where I destroyed someone was a knockout. I wasn't great at basketball, but could still shoot decently. I managed to get to the end, and was going against a senior who was on the high school basketball team. I'm 5'8", male who's skinny, and I was a freshman. Never missed a shot, and got him out. Never lost a knockout game. I was a competitive swimmer for 14 years, including 4 years of NCAA, but I'm on the shorter side, so people don't assume I was any good. Was at a friend's house on a lake one summer, and a macho guy challenged me to race to a buoy in the middle of the lake. To prove something, I guess. The lake is deceptively large, about a half mile across, so I warned him that if he isn't a strong swimmer it could be dangerous. He was running out of gas after about 2 minutes, so I offered to let him off the hook, but he insisted he would finish. I went to the buoy and was swimming back when I found him floundering, so I lifeguard swam him back to the house. His ego took a deserved hit that day. Don't get cocky around water, even if you think you're a strong swimmer. Edit. Thanks a ton for the W in the votes, but I want to emphasize here how quickly this kind of thing can turn dangerous. I was a lifeguard at the time, and there was another lifeguard present, but even so this was a dumb idea. Don't do dumb stuff in water. Yup, hotel pools are where I shine. I'm 34. A young colleague challenged me to a 1vs1 in CS GO. He didn't know this, but I used to play CS 1.6 competitively for 6 years back in my day. I'll let him know that I was rusty, but I used to be pretty good at it. He was like, yeah sure. I think he regarded me as an old fart who was making stuff up. Turns out my skills translated pretty well from 1.6, and after the first 3 to 4 rounds I gained traction. He didn't win another round, and I wiped the floor with him. One day, someone is going to do this to S1 pleb. Just graduated as a teacher and I've been working as a casual relief teacher. I play lacrosse, which is a small sport already, and even smaller here in Australia. I tried out for the last World Cup team, and made it to the final cut. I was team teaching with another teacher who worked at the school. Before the period he spoke to me, and said, hey mate, we are doing lacrosse today. It's a bit of a not sport and hard to teach, so just wait over there, and then you can just help with supervision and discipline. Then walked off. Being a court from an agency, didn't really know how to speak to him / speak up. I tried to speak to him and say that I played, but he didn't give me a second, so I just listened and did my thing. Few minutes into the start of the lesson I grabbed a stick and ball and just started to work my around the class, giving them pointers and hints. The way he was teaching was completely incorrect, and I didn't want to say anything, so when the kids broke off into groups, I kinda just taught them correctly. He pulled me over at a drinks break and asked how I knew so much / good perform the skills. I told him how I play lacrosse and my playing history. He asked why I didn't speak up and say anything, and I said I tried to tell him. Anyway, I ended up running the rest of the class and even ended up sitting down with him and going through the correct and easier way to teach the game and skills. He sounds like a good guy, at least didn't let his ego get in the way. While not a pro, I'm pretty darn good at poker. The church I was at had a poker night, and I was just going to watch. They insisted I join the 25-cent game. Came home with $200 and they decided to never have a poker night again. Username doesn't check out. I'm not a great swimmer, but there was a time when I would do laps for literally hours. I would go slowly to make sure that I had the energy to do the time I wanted to. This kid challenged me to race. I left him so far behind it was funny. Though he was about to humiliate me in front of his friends. Non-swimmers who know nothing about technique are an absolute hoot to race. Beaten my fair share of buddies who are quick swimmers and didn't know I raced competitively and went to state finals. I refuse to get in most pools now, and so they think I'm scared to swim. I just hate the memories. People say all kinds of random shit, how weather and climate functions. I'm a meteorologist in disguise, work as a data scientist, but has a master's and a PhD in meteorology. When I politely and gently inform them how things actually work, people are usually super interested to know more. But occasionally I got something like, oh yeah, and how do you know? Well, I have published several papers on the matter, would love to discuss it all night. So far, they've all backed down after that. Edit. Most common claim I've heard must be that the same weather as a day before acts as a better forecast than the weather forecasts. So attractively simple claim, yet so inaccurate, for the mid-latitudes where I live. It happened all the time back when Guitar Hero was a big thing. I was that kid who was only a few notes shy of hitting every note in Through the Fire and Flames. People were always shocked at how well I could play, and never lost to anyone in person, only to some people online. I still play Clone Hero, and I've gotten better since then, but now my competition is a lot more fierce, since it's a niche community. Not really a "you got owned" moment, but in college my buddies and I always got the new fighting game when it came out, and would put in a couple hundred hours or so on it, basically dicking around with it in online or practice mode before dropping it. But during that time we'd have fight nights couple times a week, where we'd all get together at someone's place and duke it out. Loser switches controllers. It's not like I never won, but I was always just middle of the pack, and after 2 years of this literally no one would consider me to be some fighting game wizard. Quite the opposite if anything. Then, for the first time ever, the group decided to pick up a third fighter instead of a second one. Soul Calibur 3 I think, and unknown to anyone in our playgroup I'd grinded Soul Calibur I for 10 hours a day, every day, for 3 to 4 years, against 5 people who were doing the same, and were just as good as me. It honestly wasn't even fun. After the first half hour they were playing with 200% health, while I was playing with 50%, picking random character select, and I still hadn't passed the controller once. And thus it was tacitly agreed that we would all play second fighters from then on.